In this video, I will be attempting to build a Craigslist clone in 30 minutes. Now, I don't know if this is possible or not, but I do know that Craigslist is a very simple site in terms of design. It's basically a forum where you can post in different categories and post adverts, and that's pretty much it. You can see the date and when things are posted, some details, and it's categorized. So before we jump in here, I'm just going to show that I'm using Ruby Version Manager, and this project will be built on Ruby on Rails 6, and we're using Ruby 2.6.3. And if we do the gem list here, we can see that we've got Ruby 6 installed already. So let's go ahead and set up a new Rails app, and we're going to pass in a couple of options here just to use Postgres and to skip turbo links. And I want to take a moment just to say that if you enjoy this kind of content, do subscribe to the channel and give this video a like, because it lets me know what you guys are enjoying watching and I can create more content in the future. And if you're also interested, you can purchase a more complete version of the MVP for Craigslist on my store. And I also have MVPs there for Instagram, and I'll be working on several more over the coming weeks. So check the description below to get a link for that. So right now we're just waiting for the installation to complete. So we are pulling down all the dependencies for Rails, for the Rails 6 app, and now it has just completed. So what we'll do now is just add the Git reference. So we've set up a Git repository in Bitbucket, and I just want to set up the Git remote for that so that we can push the code to Bitbucket in the future. So I'm not going to focus too much on Git on this video, and the reason for that is that it will hold us back, and since this is a speed build, we want to just keep pushing forward, and we'll focus on tidying things up at the very end. So right now I've just opened up the app within my code editor. So I'm using Atom for this, but you can use a different code editor. And the first thing I'm doing here is I'm running Rails DB setup, and that's to create our databases. And then I'm running Rails DB migrate to create the schema file that we need. And now opening up the Rails server, we can see that the app is indeed installed correctly. So the first thing we want to do here then is create a scaffold for categories. So as we can see on the Craigslist homepage, it's just a big list of categories. So running this command will create a bunch of files for us. It sets up the controller, the model, the views as well, and even the migration. So now let's go ahead and complete this migration. So let's fill this out with a name, and we also want to add a URL here for when that category is clicked. Now we can run the database migration. So now if we go back to our routes file, we can add a default path for our application so that whenever a user lands on the home page, that they are getting this view from our public controller. So let's get this set up, and we'll create the view for that. And let's just test that our homepage is working. And looking back at the Craigslist homepage, we can see that they have all these categories. So what I've done is copy and pasted this directly off the list of categories on Craigslist. And then what I'm going to do is generate these into a new category entry. And so I'm going to use a multi-cursor approach to do this. So you can use this within your editor. So just to quickly fill out repetitive data. So I'm going to do this for each of the categories that we have. And while doing this, I realized that we are missing a field for our categories table. So we want to have parent categories, and adding a reference field for that will allow us to have subcategories and parent categories. So now we can run this migration and get back to editing our categories. So what we're doing now is setting a name, URL, and parent ID for each of these category lists. So each of these lists of categories will go under a top category at the very top of this file. And now I'm just pasting them into our seeds file, and then we can run railsdb seed to generate these new entries into our database. And that seems to have completed now, and we can even go ahead and confirm how many we have in the database. So now going back to our home template, let's go ahead and iterate over these categories, and we'll just generate some dummy code here just to see the output of the name of each category. And I've just pasted in some basic HTML code from Bootstrap, and then back in terminal I'm just making an initial commit on the repository for Git just to tidy things up a bit. Now, I mentioned Bootstrap there before, but we don't have Bootstrap installed for this app, and I don't see it being an issue because the Craigslist website that we're trying to replicate here does not have any styles beyond very, very basic layout styles, so I don't think we'll need Bootstrap for this build. But hopping back into our category model, I'm basically setting up here a relationship where each category can have a subcategory if it uses the parent ID field, and in turn each category can have a parent. So that goes both ways, and we can test this relationship out within Rails console. So I'm just grabbing the subcategories of the first category, and as we can see here, there are a number of categories being returned. And then just within our public controller, then we can select the categories that do not have a parent ID set. So that will be the top level categories that will hold categories within it. So within the view now, then we can iterate over these subcategories, and then we can have this kind of tree hierarchy where we have a list of subcategories underneath a main category. So we're going ahead here and setting up some basic structure to this content. So I'll wrap these category names, the subcategory names, in a div, and we can see them here on the home page now. However, we want to improve the layout a little bit. We need to get this in a multi-column layout. So let's add a div around each top level category, and we'll add a CSS class so that we can attach some styles for layout. And then we'll make the bolded top level category. So make that top level category name bolded. And I think we're going to remove some of this code here for now. And we can put that into the application within layouts folder. So we'll just update the class names. So we're not using Bootstrap, so we're going to write some custom CSS for these classes. And we're only focusing on very basic styling, so layout, column layout, and really minimal styling, just how it is on Craigslist. So let's set a max width on the top level container, and then we'll set a 2-column layout on the main body content. So a left column of 33.3% and the right column then of 66.6%. And we'll use a float then to get these aligned properly. And we will center align our top level container, and we'll do that using margin left auto, margin right auto. It's a bit of an old school CSS trick to center align. However, I think we've misnamed the class name here, something going on. Yeah, so we have a class of body on our markup, so let's change that quickly. And you can see that this is a very long list at the moment. So what we can do is style this category box and set a width and float that also. And that helps a little bit, but some of these top level categories have lots of subcategories. If you look at discussion forums, for example, and there seems to be no real consistency in the column layout. So some of them are 3, some of them are 2. But what we can do is set a limit on the categories we display underneath. And so let's set this dot limit and set it to 10. and that's looking quite a bit better right now. So yeah, let's go with that for now. So the next thing we need to do is generate some left nav links in here. So we can put a name at the top, and then we'll want to have a link to create a new post. So we're adding the link first, but we don't actually have the post table set up yet. So let's go ahead and try that now. So we will do that using the Rails generate scaffold command, and we've accidentally set it here as plural, but it has corrected it automatically for us. So we've got this new controller, new model, new views, and new migration. So first thing first, we will update this migration. So when we're creating a new post, we want to reference category, and that post should also have a title, and then it will have a content box. So that will be like a text area. So now within the new model for post, we want to say that each post belongs to a category, and we want to say that that category has many posts. And now if we reload the homepage, we can see that our new post link is working this time. However, we're missing some fields in the form field. But before we get into that, we want to add links to these category names. So these subcategories, we need to link them so that the user can click on them. So let's do that now. And we can also do the same for the parent category, the main category. So let's add a link for that one too. And now when we click on this, at the moment this is just a blank show view. So once we click on that, we want to list all of the posts within that category, just like it is here on Craigslist. And we can see here on the left, they have a hide and show category view. Now what we want to do is something similar. We would like to show the category at the top, and then underneath we want to show the subcategories. So let's try to replicate this. We can also hide this create new post button if the user is on a post page already. So we can just have that on the home page. And once you're on the post page, that disappears. And then we can load in some categories here if the user is on a category page. So let's set up a new sidebar for that. And we'll only load that if the categories controller is being used. So let's set up this partial for category sidebar, and in here we're just loading the first category right now. So that's the top level category, and we can say we can iterate over the subcategories here. So if there are subcategories, we will loop over those and then list out the subcategory name for each of the entries. So just like that. And then we would also want to put this into a list, so we can change the markup to fit that. Okay, and it's looking a bit better now. So let's make this top category bolded, make it stand out a little bit. And then on the main section, we want to be showing a list of posts. So let's update our show view for categories. And again, we will loop over each of the posts and then output we want to output a title here, so the post title, and we also want to add a date, so the date that it was posted. So it would be date first and then the title of the post. And we can format that in different ways, but I think for this example we're going to use time ago in words. So that will say that this post was created 10 minutes ago or 2 days ago. So it just seems a little bit nicer in terms of the output. And then we will add the post title here also. So now let's update our form for posts. So we want to add in our fields for title and content. So let's add these in. Text field for title, and we'll use a label. And now let's add our content. So that would be a text area, and we'll add the label again. And we can see the new fields are displaying on the form. So let's go into our controller for posts, and we will add a .permit to this post params, and we will add our new fields in there. And now we can test this out. Let's try to create a post. And it's saying a category must exist. So we are tying this to a category. So let's add the category ID field, and then we will add a select box for the categories. So we want to load all the categories here, and we will use the name and ID to populate this select field. So now we can reload this form, and we see that the select box has been added. So let's try this once again to create our first post. And that appears to have worked this time. But we're not really seeing much in the way of details when we visit the post, so we'll need to update that. So back on our home page now, and things are starting to look quite good. And we are only about 15 minutes into building this app. And now we want to click on the services category. So this is where we've added our first post, and we can see it here. So it's saying 1 minute. So we'll update this this description for time. So 1 minute ago, and then we will link our post directly to that post view. And that's working now. And let's just delete this edit category and this back button. And what we can do here now is we can add a little bit of styling on this just to make it a little bit better in terms of layout. So we'll add a margin to the bottom, and maybe we can add a little bit of a background color. So let's test this out, and we'll add a little padding as well. Maybe we can make that lighter. As you've probably noticed here on Craigslist, there's not much in the way of filtering for these posts. It seems to be that users can add any kind of post they want. So you will find lots of scammy posts and get-rich-quick posts, but that's just to be expected. So back on track now, let's add a color on our post date. And if we go to some categories, we can see that there are nothing to be displayed, no posts to be displayed. So let's quickly do the same within our application. So in order to do that, we can move this category.posts out into the controller, and we'll set that within the categories show view. And then in here we can check to see if the post is actually set. So we can check to see if it's empty, and if it's empty, then we will create this message. So now when we click on the post, we can see so far in our app that it's empty, the view, but if we go into our Craigslist app, we can see that there is a title, a text area, description, and there's also a post ID and a date time field that shows how long ago the post was made. So let's try to create something similar. So I'm adding in the post title as an H1 tag, and we will drop in the post content as a simple format. So that will allow the text area formatting into paragraphs. And just quickly here on the left, we're going to link back to the root path for the title. Just makes it easier to get back to the home page. And now let's continue with adding in our post ID and our time since post created. So again, we'll use time ago in words. We'll say posted X minutes ago. Okay, so now let's add the post ID, and we'll just add it all within this one paragraph tag, and we'll convert the ID to a string. And then we can add some basic markup to separate these values and put a class on CSS class on each of these span tags. So let's add a little style here to set a margin to push these two values apart. And again, we'll just try to push this whole block down a bit. So we'll wrap a style around this. So margin top, and we'll set that to 30 pixels. And it's looking a little bit better. And we can actually add a date in at the top. So we'll just copy and paste this one. And we'll also need a link at the top to say reply. Now I won't activate this at the moment. We'll come back to this, but so we can again set a basic style on this, and there's also a link at the top for print. So let's just add another link here, and we can use inline JavaScript just to run a print command on the page. And again, we'll set a class and we'll just float that to the right. So on the home page of Craigslist, they have this My Account link, and that points to a login page. So let's go ahead and set up user accounts now, and we'll do that using devise. So let's add the gem into the gem file, and then we'll run the installation. And we can just paste this into our local environment, our development environment. So I'm just following the on-screen commands here, and we already have a root path set, but we could add this notice into our application file under layouts, and then we will go ahead and set up our devise views. So the first thing we need to do here then is create a devise model. So we'll call that account. Then we will have a look inside. So we can see here the new configuration file has been set up, and we'll run the migration. The migration will just create a default account for that, the table in our database. So in our routes here, we can see that that device has already been added, so that's great. And I'm just going to close some of these windows down because they are starting to getting a bit cluttered. So back into our application layout, so let's add in our account link. So we can just call this sign in or my account, and then we will only load this if the user is not signed in already. So we can see the sign in link now. But yeah, we can change the wording of that a little bit just to match. And we will add a line break directly after the create new post. So that's looking not bad so far. So in here we can sign in then or sign up. So let's sign up with a test account. And now let's try creating a post. And one thing we can do for the post, before we create it, we want to set the account ID. And we can also validate the user on this controller, so make sure that they are actually logged in before they can create a post. So now we want to add a account ID to the post. However, we don't have that created yet as a field in the database. So let's run a new migration to add that account ID to posts. And in here then we can add a new account ID, and we can actually change this to reference and just change that to account, and let's run the migration. And now we will set the account ID for the logged in user. So now let's try out this new post again, and it should be connected to our user account. It should also be connected to the category. And then we will set the category. So in this case, we are creating a missed connection for this post as our dummy post. And now we can see that it's been added. So one thing we can do now is we're missing this bar at the top. So we will create a header at the top of the page, and that will hold the basic breadcrumb navigation, and we can create a new partial to store that code. So we'll set up a conditional statement here to see if there is a post present, and otherwise then we'll check to see if a category is present, and we'll handle both of these scenarios differently. And we'll also include a default link back to the home page. So if the post is present, then we will access a category using post.category, set the name, and otherwise we will just use category.name if the category is present. So now let's add a link to this category. And then we can add this little arrow in after the link. So it is still missing the parent category here, so let's go and add that in now. And we only want to show this parent category if it is set. So let's add a query here to ensure that it's set. So make sure that it's present, otherwise we will not be showing the parent category. And this appears to be good right now. So we've got the parent category, and if you go to the subcategory, you can see it. However, if we go to the post view itself, we see that we're missing the parent category. So let's just copy this and modify it a little bit for our posts. So we'll set the parent, and again, and we will show this parent if it exists. So it's looking right now. And one extra step we can make here is to ensure that this post is not being used whenever we are creating a new post. So in this case, we don't want to try and load this post.category because it's a new entry and it will not have a category set already. So now we will define a new helper method, and this will help us to hide or show our breadcrumb navigation. So in here we are checking to see if it is using the public controller and the action view is home. So in this case we will be hiding this breadcrumb navigation on the home page. And then on the inner pages of the categories, and we will want to show it. So now I want to improve the style of this top header area. So I've set a background color, but it looks like the scaffolds style sheet is causing some layout issues. So we will try to tidy this up a little bit, and we will set the position to absolute and align it to the top left. And we will also make it a full width of the screen. And we can also then set a margin on the main class. So we don't want it to be hidden behind the top header area. And then finally we can move the content of this breadcrumbs file into the center. So set a max width again of the same width as the .main class, so 1024, and just again we are center aligning it, and we'll set a top margin, and that's looking pretty good right now. And I think we will just keep this navigation at the top displaying on all pages, so we'll change that. And now we just want to add the links to the top right. So we have my account, and we also have new post. And we will just add some basic styling to float those to the right. And we can add a little bit of spacing just to give them some room between these two links. So we've hit the half-hour mark, and now what we can do to round this off is just to include some navigation links on the left sidebar. So I'm just going to copy these from the links that are shown on Craigslist. So you've got FAQs, scams, safety, terms of use, and just going to be generic Laura Mipsum pages just to show how this works. So we could get away without doing this, but I think it just makes the app look a little bit more complete. So I'm going to copy and paste this and set up the additional pages, just replacing the title in each page. And then we will open up our routes file and set these new pages, the path for these new pages. So we'll use a get request for this, and then we will set the URL path, and then we will use the controller of public and the method name of scams in this case. So I will just replace each of these to match the pages that we have set up. So now we will just need to put the links to these 4 pages in the sidebar. So that's in our application layout. And what we want to do for this is we only want to show this if it's on the home page. So if the user is on the home page, and we will just quickly type these in. So now we can reload our page and we have these 4 links, and let's just push these down a little bit. So we'll set a div to wrap around these links, and we'll add a class here for this, nav pages, and then we can set a margin in the style sheet. So now when we reload this page, it's starting to look pretty good now. I'm happy enough with the layout, and we can test these pages and see that they work. And overall everything's looking quite nice here. Simple, but it's all working correctly. So now we can jump in here and just set this links on the home page to only show if it's on the home page itself. So now when we go to the categories, it will disappear. And we can, while we're here, just add links to these sub-navigation on the left side. So let's open up our category sidebar and add in these links. So a category path, and then we'll pass in the subcategory. Okay, that's working. One other thing to note is that on these top categories, these parent categories, they should be displaying all of the posts for all their subcategories. So we need to make a slight modification to make that work. So let's try to modify this post select, and we'll pass in an array of IDs that we want to search for. So we want to get a list of subcategory IDs. And now if we test this out, we can see that the top level category is indeed loading all the sub posts. And now we can just add a sign out link here, replacing the my account link at the top. So that's only if the user is signed in, and we want to use the delete method for this. So in this case we can just check to see if the user is signed in first, and then otherwise we will just show the normal link. And now if you reload the page, we can indeed sign out. So that's going to do it for this video. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the progress we've made. It's just been over 30 minutes, and we have got a basic layout for all the categories on the homepage, the ability to sign up, sign in, sign out, and the ability to create new posts and put them within categories. So hopefully you guys have found this video helpful, and if you have, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more MVP videos. So I will be creating more videos like this in the future, and do drop a comment if you want me to create something in particular. And you can also check out my website in the description below to purchase this template or many other MVP templates. And with that out of the way, I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.